Welcome, I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching America 360 on Newsx World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. The US has seized a sanctioned oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. This has sent oil prices higher and has sharply escalated tension between Washington and Caracas. President Trump says he's concerned Ukraine hasn't had an election in a long time, adding further pressure on President Volodymyr Zelensky. His remarks come as Washington continues to scrutinize Kyiv's political and security situation. US President Donald Trump has launched a fast-track US visas to wealthy foreigners who can pay $1 million. The card will give buyers a direct path to citizenship for all qualified and vetted people. Trump has said that the CNN should be sold as part of a deal for its parent company, Warner Bros. Discovery, or separately. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Maria Corina Machado says she received help from the United States government to leave hiding in Venezuela and collect her award. This comes amid the escalating tension between US and Venezuela. A federal judge in California has ordered an end to the US president's deployment of National Guard troops to Los Angeles. He's directed the troops to return to state's Democratic governor. European Union ministers have met in Lviv to support Ukraine's European Union membership bid while seeking ways to bypass Hungary's veto, which has stalled progress. As full accession requires unanimous approval, European Union leaders are considering sectoral integration as a temporary workaround. British police have said that more than 600 high-value artifacts were stolen from a building in the English city of Bristol, where items from a museum collection were being stored. Police said that in the early hours of September 25, 4 men allegedly broke in Bristol Museum's collection of the British Empire and Commonwealth, but it was not previously been publicized. And let's start America 360 with some breaking news now coming in. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that he had a warm and productive conversation with US President Donald Trump, noting progress in bilateral ties and cooperation on global peace and stability. The exchange comes as India and the United States continue working through key trade negotiations. Previously, India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said the trade talks are progressing well, pushing back on remarks made by India's chief economic advisor. Goyal notes that 5 substantive rounds of negotiations have already taken place and stresses the goal is a mutually beneficial deal, not one rushed by deadlines. And now joining us in this discussion is a retired Major General G.G. Dwivedi, who is an international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you, sir, for joining us here at Newsx World. Now, very crucial development coming in, Modi and Trump holding talks, and notably, this is just day after Netanyahu and Prime Minister Modi had also held a conversation in which Netanyahu briefed the Prime Minister Modi of the West Asia situation and the Gaza peace plan.
Well, Kriti, I'm sure this development is a very positive sign because there was some kind of impression that there is tension between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, but I think this meeting puts at rest those type of conjecturing. And this meeting is important because of a couple of reasons. First and foremost, the American National Security Strategy Doctrine was unveiled only last week, and in which the doctrine has given a very prominent role for India, especially in Indo-Pacific. And so therefore, I think this meeting only takes forward what are the Americans or the US strategic goals. And to that extent, I think India is a strategic partner. We have a special strategic partnership with the US, and there are a number of issues on which we are on the same page, be it Indo-Pacific, be it South Asia per se, and also our cooperation in the area of security, in the area of defense, and especially when you talk of compact, that is the critical technologies for military use, and also, as you rightly mentioned, that the talks are going on for the suitable or a favorable trade agreement on which a lot of work has gone in. So I can say in nutshell that this meeting comes as a very important meeting. It puts at rest a lot of conjecturing that was going on. India-US relations are very deep-rooted, and in fact I have been talking about and rather advocating that there may be small irritants, but largely our relationship with America are strategic in nature, very deep rooted, and we share same values. Our national objectives are same, and also our strategic objectives and goals are same. So I think that this meeting comes at a crucial time. Well, globe is rebalancing, and in fact, in the meeting, all the minutes or the statement that have come out that our relationship between the two countries are moving forward despite the geopolitical flux. Kriti.
Right. Now, sir, this is also coming after uh, the US trade representative had said that he's got the best ever deal from India. The US has got the best ever deal from India, and then Prime Minister Modi and President Trump hold a phone call. This is indeed a signal in the positive direction, especially after the sanctions threats that had been looming large just a couple of months ago. So a welcome change, and also goes on to show how the United States now cannot overlook the importance that a large economy as India has in the global market.
Absolutely, Kriti, because India is definitely a emerging power, and it has a lot of heft and clout, because not only it is a economy that is growing up, but its positioning in the South Asia, its positioning in the Asia Pacific itself has a very important role, which America had realized right from the early part of this century. And these small irritants do come about, and every president, every leader has a certain amount of, you can say, fixations, and President Trump has fixation with the, what you call tariffs or the buying oil from Russia. I think to that extent, India also has toned down, and our requirement of oil or the purchase of oil from Russia has come down, and that has gone in favor of the President Trump's, fixation. And also, you see, when you take the larger picture, it's very important that India fits in well with the American strategic objectives and goals. And so also for India, America as a partner is very, very important. Whether you take Quad or you take the other geopolitical issues, especially when you take the South Asia, you take Asia Pacific, you take Indo Pacific, India fits in well into the larger design. And this trade deal was actually moving forward, but there were certain glitches. Like India has its own national interest, we had certain reservations on our agriculture, on our dairy products, and also it had to be balanced out. See, good agreements are win-win situation, and it appears that India and America has decided to meet midway, and that's how this trade deal is also possibly would be inked in very near future. But point I'm trying to make is that there are no major issues or major irritants. The small ones have been ironed out, and I think from now on, relationship actually should progress the way the trajectory was since last about 2 decades.
All right,
Kriti.
retired Major General, let's also talk about global peace that Prime Minister Modi has, said about in his tweet after talking with Trump. Uh, like I said yesterday, there was a phone call with Netanyahu, and now Trump, whose patience apparently seems to be running out with Ukraine and Russia as far as the peace plan is concerned, is now holding a conversation with Prime Minister Modi. What does that go on to show about Prime Minister Modi's leadership in mediating international wars?
Well, when the countries interact or deal with each other. One is the personal leadership, and secondly is the policies of the government. And they see, India has always stood for peace,
Yeah.
and we have never taken sides. And Mr. Modi has also been advocating that, look, as a Ukraine war is concerned, we need to give diplomacy, dialogue a chance. It's not the era of war. That have been stated by him over a number of times. And second point is that India has good relations with most of the countries. Like Russian President Putin was here for almost a day plus, and a lot of discussion would have gone through. And I'm sure Ukraine would have been discussed in entirety, because when President Putin came here, he had a long conversation, dialogue with Mr. Witkoff and Kushner. They were there in Moscow. And similarly, India has very good relations with Israel and also with the Palestinians. The point at issue is that India has multilateral engagements. We have good relations with most of the countries, but for our odd neighbor, which is, is a sort of, they have own policies, we are not able to figure it out. But the point is that largely, India stands for peace, India leadership stands for peace, and Prime Minister Modi has always advocated that it is through dialogue and diplomacy we can sort out most of the problems. And in this case, I'm sure President Trump would be banking upon Prime Minister Modi, because he has a good relation with President Putin, a good relation with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and also Prime Minister Modi had visited Ukraine and also
Yes.
had a conversation with President Zelensky. So the point is that we are engaging with all, we have good relationship with all, and I'm sure we can, Prime Minister Modi and India per se, can help in restoring peace in the conflict that are going on, especially in Ukraine and in Gaza, between Israel and Hamas.
Well, absolutely. Thank you
Kriti.
for now, retired Major General, for joining us and helping us with your perspective and give an explanation of that phone call between the two leaders. And with that, viewers, let's move on to some more news now in concern to the United States. Now, the Trump administration has escalated pressure on Venezuela after U.S. forces seized an oil tanker carrying Venezuelan crude in international waters. The vessel, linked to sanctioned oil networks, was boarded by Coast Guard teams with military support. The move fits into a broader U.S. campaign targeting vessels accused of transporting illicit cargo and follows a series of deadly strikes on alleged drug trafficking boats. Critics warn the operations may exceed legal authority and risk deeper conflict with Venezuela. The seizure comes amid a major U.S. naval build-up near the country and uncertainty over Trump's intentions. Democrats demand transparency on earlier double-tap strikes that killed survivors. Meanwhile, opposition leader Maria Corina Machado's emergence abroad increases pressure on Maduro's regime. Caracas condemns the tanker seizure as proof that U.S. pressure is driven by Venezuela's national resources, while former intelligence officials call the boarding routine in sanction enforcement. Now, joining us in this discussion is Matthew Wadham, who is an American journalist and author, joins us live from Washington. Matthew, first of all, do help us explain if this seizure by the United States is legal. Does it have the authority to seize vessels in international borders just based on suspicion? And we cannot ignore the context in the middle of which this seizure has happened.
Right. Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't tell you if this was a lawful seizure or not, but the United States believes it has the right to take the ship because they allege that it is carrying sanctioned oil to which economic sanctions apply, and so they took it. But I'm not sure the United States is particularly interested in the oil tanker. The United States is trying to put pressure on the Venezuelan strongman, the dictator Maduro, to get him to to step down from power. They want the United States wants regime change
Yep.
in Venezuela, and it is applying pressure. And this appears to be one of the ways that it does that, because this hurts the Venezuelan economy, which is so dependent on oil exports for survival.
Right. All right, that's what I wanted to hear from you. Clearly, Trump's effort to destabilize Maduro's regime, especially after he's provided support to Machado, reached Norway. With that, I'd let you go, and thank you, Matthew, for joining us for now here at NewsX World. And we move on, viewers. Colombian President Gustavo Petro has sharply accused US President Donald Trump of spreading misinformation about Colombia's fight against drug trafficking. Petro says Trump is acting on false claims and taking decisions that show disrespect towards a democratically elected leader. He also adds that he is allowed to disagree with Washington on issues like Palestine, migration, Venezuela, and how effective the global fight against drug cartels really is, as it is his right in a global democracy. And in a direct challenge to Trump, Petro says he has no longer expectations of an invitation to Washington. Instead, he wants Trump to come to Colombia himself, understand how authorities seize dozens of tons of drugs on the ground. Let's have a look at what President Petro had to say.
Y Centroamérica. Esa desinformación terrible hacia el presidente de los Estados Unidos lo lleva a frases y acciones que no se pueden ejercer sobre un presidente elegido democráticamente por la mayoría de la sociedad colombiana. Así se irrespeta esa Colombia. Tengo opiniones diferentes a las políticas del gobierno estadounidense sobre Palestina, migrantes, Caribe, Venezuela y la eficacia de la lucha contra las mafias. En una democracia global tengo derecho a expresarlas y controvertir. Por eso ya no espero que me inviten a Washington, sino que Trump venga a Colombia a ver qué son laboratorios de cocaína, cómo se destruyen 9 al día y cómo incautamos drogas por decenas de toneladas todos los días.
All right, I now request Matthew to join us back into the discussion here. Matthew, thank you for staying with us. Now, this is a rather forceful, even emotional response that's coming from Petro. How do you see this reaction from him?
Well, it's predictable, because Petro is a communist and a former member of a terrorist organization. So everything that the United States does is wrong in his view. This is a man who came to the United States and gave a speech outside the United Nations encouraging U.S. troops to mutiny against President Trump. So, anything he says is, of course, going to have a very heavy anti-American component to it. So anything he says about the United States has to be taken with a grain of salt.
All right, and what about the allegation of Trump's extrajudicial killings in an attempt to prevent illicit drug trafficking?
Well, again, as I said earlier, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't pass judgment on whether their killings are extrajudicial or not. But the United States is asserting that the
Matthew, there's criticism
narcotics
that's coming
traffickers
for
are
the
terrorists.
United States president that he can look at his own backyard instead of just killing people on suspicion of peddling drugs.
Right.
Nobody's forcing drugs in the bouts of the Americans. They can control, they can take their own decisions. So instead of just killing people on mere suspicion, US president definitely knows better.
Well, this is an argument that some in the United States have also said that, like Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky, has said that the president shouldn't be doing this, and the federal government doesn't have authority to kill suspected drug traffickers on the high seas, that it should try to intercept them and arrest them. And the United States has done that a little bit. that it shouldn't just be, executing them on the high seas. And this is a criticism that has that is being this allegation that the Trump administration is acting without legal justification is now being investigated by the United States Congress. And obviously, it's not the best way to handle things, but that's but that's what the United States has chosen to do. Normally, you should just try and arrest these people
Yes.
instead of blowing up their boats.
Yep.
And this is unusual, and President Trump has been unusually aggressive in the war on drugs, much more than his predecessor, Joe Biden, was.
All right. Thank you, Matthew, for joining us and helping us with your perspective there. And with that, we move on now, viewers. Now, there's a news that's making rounds through the day today. The Trump administration has officially launched the Trump Gold Card, which is a visa program offering non-US citizens an expedited pathway to permanent residency for a hefty fee. Applicants must pay $15,000 processing fee and after a background check make a $1 million contribution to receive a visa similar to a green card, allowing them to live and work in the United States. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has announced that around 10,000 people pre-registered for the program, with expectations that it could raise billions for the U.S. Treasury. The initiative aims to attract individuals who would contribute to the U.S. economy, contrasting them with typical green card holders whom Lutnick claimed earn less and are more likely to rely on public assistance. In a White House statement, President Trump described the program as a much stronger path than the green card, emphasizing its value for those deemed to be great people. The program also includes a corporate version, allowing companies to expedite visas for foreign employees for a $2 million contribution per individual. And let's shift now focus. Amid the Trump's ongoing immigration crackdown, immigrants in detention choose deportation under pressure. This is the story of one such family, the Vargases. The email from a U.S. immigration officer presented Kelly and Yerson Vargas with a stark choice: accept deportation to their native Colombia or risk being charged with a crime and separated from their 6-year-old daughter. The Vargases, held at a Texas detention center, had already received a deportation order and been pressured to board flights to Colombia. They resisted because they had submitted visa applications as victims of human trafficking, saying they faced forced labor and death threats from cartel members in Mexico as they transited to the United States. In the October 31 email, the immigration officer threatened to prosecute them for failure to comply with the deportation order, a rarely used statute that could lead to 10 years in prison. As a result, the Vargases chose to abandon their visa applications and board a deportation flight in November rather than risk being split up with a daughter. When asked about Vargas' case, U.S. Department of Homeland Security spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin has said that U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers don't threaten people and appropriately inform them about the federal charges. Martin Saeres, who's an international affairs expert, now joins us live from Ecuador. Martin, how do you react to this particular case in question?
It's very tragic because we are witnessing the use of force and the use of illegal means to deport people that are protected by several constitutional rules. Even though, regardless of whether they are legal or illegal, they are basically illegally putting a criminal action on innocent people for trying to find a justification to deport them. That's absolutely not legal, and that's tragic.
Excuse me. Martin, do you think there's any other alternative that could have been adopted by the U.S., given that the family maintains that it was an effort to flee the drug cartels?
Look, it's a very complex situation because there are actually a lot of legit applications of asylum, and there are also fake asylum seekers. There's everything, but just like using these means to separate a family and deport someone just because they want to fulfill a goal of deportations is not only illegal but it's immoral. People should be deported with real grounds for deportation, not because you need to fulfill a specific number of deportations and fulfill an agenda.
All right, so what about the previous such deportations that have been reported from the United States, particularly that of Abrego Garcia, who had tattoos, and such excuses are being given to deport individuals?
This is ridiculous. I mean, the excuse is that a lot of gangsters and a lot of criminals use specific tattoos to identify themselves, and now they're deporting people just to have a tattoo. This is becoming really not only not logical but ridiculous. They just try to find every type of justification to deport people based on their Hispanic background. It's not even based on security concerns or other concerns. He just wants to deport Hispanics no matter what.
All right. Thank you, Martin, for joining us and helping us in this discussion with your perspective. And with that, viewers, we're now going to move on. Now, Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado says she received support from the US government to reach Norway for the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony, though she did not share details to protect those involved. Listen in.
Certainly, the regime would have done everything to prevent me from coming. They did not know where I was in hiding in Venezuela, so it was hard for them to stop me. It was rude, nonetheless. And yes, we did get support from the United States government to get here.
Machado escaped Venezuela while in hiding, reportedly slipping through military checkpoints in disguise before boarding a fishing boat. According to reports, she then flew from Curacao to Norway with a brief stop in the United States. CNN has not independently verified this account. Her journey comes as the Maduro's government continues to target opposition figures, and Nobel officials say she faced a significant strain getting to Oslo. And now moving on, Lionel Messi's GOAT India Tour 2025 is sparking nationwide excitement as the Argentina legend begins his 3-day 4-city visit from December 13 to 15. This is Messi's first trip to India since 2011, and he's set to travel to Kolkata, Hyderabad, Mumbai and New Delhi, where his tour concludes with an expected meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Messi is joined on parts of the tour by former Barcelona teammate Luis Suarez, Argentina midfielder Rodrigo de Paul and the Chief Minister of Telangana. Tour promoter Satadru Datta said the key highlight is a football clinic in Mumbai where Messi, Suarez and de Paul will train and inspire children, including those without formal coaching. The initiative reflects Messi's long-standing commitment as a UNICEF ambassador and aims to encourage the next generation of Indian footballers. And that's a wrap on America 360. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.